Hey,
Hello,
folks.
folks.
Hey, friends.
Andy. I'm making sure that all of our agenda PRs are merged. Which I think I just got them all done. Cool. I guess we'll get started in a minute or two. Benji, are you? I'm assuming that he's not at his keyboard right now. Hey, how's it going, Benji?
Yeah, had some issues getting the webcam working.
No sweat.
Well, what time is it, Benji?
It is 11:30.
Nice.
Ooh. Great way to round out your evening. Donna, that was an amazing profile picture that you had with a balloon art GraphQL logo.
Yeah, we have a person on the team who his pandemic hobby was balloon twisting, and he got to like pro level at it. So
No kidding.
Yeah, he's the favorite dad at every birthday party, and he can do Disney princesses and really elaborate ones. So I challenged him to make the girl logo, and he did it.
I was gonna say, given that prompt, can do anything, all the Disney creatures. And you're like, but can you make a GraphQL?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah, we had a team catch up, and the surprise at the end was he taught us all how to make balloon animals. Yeah.
Amazing. That's awesome. Now you can make your own GraphQL balloon art.
Exactly.
Love it. All right, crew. Ready to get started.
Yeah.
Benji, I don't see you in the agenda file yet, but I assume you're fixing that.
I'll send a PR in a moment.
No sweat. Cool. Well, as per usual, by us all showing up, we agree to spec membership agreement, participation guidelines, contribution guides, code of conduct. Bunch of links out to all the docs there if you ever feel like some good evening readings. But otherwise, I think it'd be helpful to go around, just do a quick set of intros, even though we got a tight group. And we'll go in alphabetical order with the exception of myself, since I'm already talking. Get myself out of the way. So, hello, everybody. My name is Lee.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andy, working on GraphQL Java and working at Atlassian.
Benji, I think I put you up next. I assume you're doing on a PR screen.
Oh, hey, everyone. I'm Benji.
Hey everyone, I'm Donna. I work with Andy at Atlassian as well, and I also help out with GraphQL Java. Over to you, Philip.
Hey, I'm Philip. As last time, I'll just listen in. I work on the Quarkus team at Red Hat, and I've built the GraphQL integration that's built on top of Andy's awesome GraphQL Java.
Again,
and I love that you've got a red hat in the background.
Again, I think we are representing Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane again, right? So I just wanted to point this out for the Australian viewer. Um,
And those
That's
cities
right.
are so far apart, they might as well be different countries.
There was a tech conference that I ended up not getting to do at the last moment. So I've still not been to Australia. It's on my list to come visit at some point. But the thesis of the conference was that you would get on like a cruise boat, I think, and literally stop at those 3 cities to do the same conference in Brisbane and then the exact same conference in Sydney and then in Melbourne, in whichever order would make the most sense. And it's just like 3 runs of the same one, because why, if you lived in one city, why would you ever travel to the other cities, I guess is the thesis. But
I think the cruise would take 2 weeks or so from Melbourne to Brisbane. It's not a
there
quick
may
one.
have been a flight involved.
I'll let us know if you're in town sometime.
Yeah, it's on my list. All right, well, glad to have this focused crew. We don't have a super deep agenda. Actually, the other part of your agenda is Yakov's, and I don't actually see him here. So we may punt on this until the next session, which is totally okay. In which case we can just get it into business talking about GraphQL scalars.
Can we
So
talk?
Donna and Andy, I'll hand it to you guys.
Can we a little bit meta thing, like somebody mentioned, I'm not sure, maybe it was you, Donna, or somewhere else, that the current videos are not available on YouTube.
Sorry, that's my bad. I'm going to be sorting that out shortly. I just haven't got around to it yet.
I didn't know you have to do something manually. I thought it was like Zoom automatically uploaded.
No, I didn't have access to Zoom for quite a while, so I wasn't able to do it, and I only regained access just over a week ago. So I need to catch up on all that.
No, okay, then it's fine. No pressure. I thought it's an automated process that broke because it worked so
I wonder if we
smoothly.
can automate it.
Yeah,
That would be welcome.
there's an architect here who loves shell scripting, and he automated his whole upload process from Zoom, including
amazing.
trimming the start. Like, he would detect when people started talking and it wasn't just chit chat, and he had a script to trim.
Maybe, don't know, we can share something with Benji also to make his life easier.
Oh, he's gonna love it. Tell him
That'll be it. Awesome.
Look,
Yeah,
something
if he wants to do the same thing for the GraphQL Foundation videos, let him know. We'd love it.
He's somebody who's very easily nerd sniped, so I'll let him know.
yeah,
Amazing.
but that's all what I want to mention. Like, do we have anything from the other meetings that you want to take over lead to this one, like in terms of topics or so, or some feedback about what we
Good
talked last time?
question. Yeah, so the primary meeting, let me drop a link. Especially if you haven't had a chance to go look at notes from that one, then it might be worthwhile just to do like a quick overview. Just to make sure if there is something, excuse me, that you wanted to dig into, we can have a moment to do that. The first was like just making sure that this new meeting cadence is working for folks. I think the primary thing that we will do as a shift going forward is having more of these like cross meeting check-ins, making sure that there's a decent amount of overlap between them, but not everybody is in all of them, of course. And so speaking to what happened in the previous ones, doing a little bit of a recap as like standing agenda is probably a good thing for us to do. I think there was something else that was talked about meeting cadence. Don't remember if that was the case. Anyway, that one I remember for sure. The other one is the community grant. This was one I'm excited about. This is both of course, if any of you all are interested in applying to the community grant, you absolutely should. But also one of the things that it might be too late to do for this time around, but something that I think we should start doing is collecting proposed focus areas for these kinds of grants. So for example, our website needs a healthy amount of work. GraphQL documentation could be a lot better. There's definitely like projects in there. It'd be really interesting to kind of think about these community grants, kind of like the Summer of Code, where a lot of the Summer of Code participants will pitch projects and have people apply to take on those projects. So if anyone ever has any ideas on how to spec that out or wants to help in that process, just let me know.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Otherwise, I think probably the biggest news was the Benji, I think you flagged this, that Express GraphQL has been a little bit in disrepair for the last couple of years. It hasn't had a primary maintainer. It's version skewed away from GraphQL JS, and it's caused some maintenance pain. And we had a conversation about whether that was even the right project to be representative of the GraphQL over HTTP work. And we came to the consensus that it probably was not, that actually most of the work was going into the GraphQL HTTP project. And then we decided to move that under the Foundations umbrella. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's gets us both, I think, probably a better project that represents that HTTP work, and then also brings with it a pretty stellar maintainer. And then otherwise, we were talking about expanding deprecations to the ability to deprecate objects, which is, I think, we understood that there's a real problem to be solved, but I think more problems than answers came out of it at present. So that got stage 1. And then more in the weeds on defer and stream. Actually, did we even get time to talk about defer and stream? Yeah, I think we did. Specifically, there was the overlap between defer and stream and subscriptions. What does it mean to use defer and stream within a subscription? And there's just like an entire domain of stuff that we've not thought hard enough about around, do you multiplex or not? What happens if one thing fails while it's in the middle of a multiplex? There's just like a bunch of complicated behavior that we're not really confident we have the right answers to. And Rob had pitched essentially blocking the use of defer and stream from within a subscription to make it easier for us to launch this for queries and mutations. I think there's still some nuts and bolts for him to figure out exactly the mechanics of how to do that, but everyone broadly agreed that that was the right thing to do. GraphQL HTTP project. Yeah, let me find some links. There are 2 worth talking about. Here we go. So this is the actual technical project we moved underneath the GraphQL umbrella. And Dennis is the main maintainer of this project. So Dennis has been working on this for about half a year at this point, I think, maybe a little bit longer than that, in a very focused way, and has been part of the set of folks who've been working on the GraphQL over HTTP spec. That is this one. They're confusingly very similarly named repos, which we'll have to see if we have to, that ever causes confusion, we have to fix that. But the second one is the actual specification doc. The first one is a JavaScript-based project. Good question.
Thanks.
Any other question about the stuff we went over in the main meeting? Cool. You guys want to talk about scalars?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've done quite a bit of work since we last spoke and looking to put the finishing touches on it, really. So we've done with all of the writing and template and put in a string-based template as well. So the 2 outstanding items we see now is getting the right licensing. Want to make sure that that's consistent with everything else GraphQL. And also hooking up the domain so that it's on a proper foundation domain. And Andy, tell me if I missed something.
No, that's really pretty much it where we are blocked at actively. In general, we really copied the setup deployment process of the GraphQL spec in order to minimize the overhead and make the maintenance as easy as possible going forward. So it's the same good or bad process as in the spec, some shell scripting, producing some HTML, deploying it via GitHub pages, using like some GitHub actions as initial trigger. That's basically the setup. It's successfully deployed already on the GitHub action page, GitHub pages URL for this repo. But yeah, like if I understand correctly, we need to have like a domain entry for scalars.graphql.org to hook it up correctly. That's really what is missing. I think I'm looking at you here, Lee, or somebody else who has the domain access from the foundation or so, or
Yeah.
you give me access if that's possible. Either way, I'm happy. But that's actually an interesting question. The domain, is it legally owned by the foundation these days? I would hope so.
Yes.
Okay.
The Linux Foundation actually has the tools that they use for managing DNS, which
Okay.
I'll ask Elisa, our PM, if there's an easy way for me to access that directly. Otherwise, I'll just bring that up the next time the two of us meet.
Okay.
Or maybe I could just get her help with it sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So that's I think in the actual, we are looking really at the same setup as a GraphQL spec. So if she asks what we need, it's really the same entries as spec.graphql.org. The other thing, as Donna mentioned, is a little bit just legal fine-tuning. I would say that we don't want to invent new licensing or anything. So I would expect that the same license we use for the spec is also applied to the Scalar spec, because it's also text, it's not software. So it's really in my simplified legal world, it should be the same. Yeah.
I think that makes sense to me. I think the one question here is, are these specs that are sort of like licensed and owned by the GraphQL project? Like when you submit one of these, are you basically like giving it to the project? That's probably the easiest way, especially if you want to have like multiple people contributing to them once they land.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I think it's a valid question, but in my mind, it was always exactly as you said. You submitted, you handed over in terms of legal rights to the foundation, same as any spec contribution. This is why we also review it manually and make sure it's not violating any fundamental things we want to do, or like any code of conduct or legal aspects. And then it's owned by the foundation legally, and we can tweak it, maintain it, do whatever we want as a foundation going forward. I think that's by far the easiest. Otherwise, you run, I think, into troubles. Yeah. And I think it also matches the intent of the author of the spec. If I contribute the spec, I want to have it shared and publicly available as much as possible. It's not really it's something for the public and for the community. I want to be consumed. So I don't think there will be anybody who's worried about that. Yeah.
Maybe what would be most helpful is to have one license doc, because of course the GraphQL spec, there's like one file, and it makes sense that you would include all the licensing information within that file. But if the idea of this is that you're going to have a whole bunch of Scalar specs, ideally, then you wouldn't want them all copying and pasting, or like having to have like a big chunk of legal text in your otherwise very small template. So probably the right thing to do is to have a license file at the top of the repo, and then have a link as part of the template that renders out that says like the contents of this spec is licensed via this file. That way you can just have one line in the actual spec document that gets rendered.
Yeah,
And then
what
we can
is the-
broadly just like copying and paste the chunk of legal text out of the GraphQL spec.
yeah,
And I can make sure that
think
the
that's a
the legal text gets done correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are we looking here exactly? Like, we are, I think Donna and I are happy to put up a pull request with the legal text, but it should be reviewed by somebody who makes sure at least that this is aligned with what we have else. If you can do it yourself, Lee, that's great. If we need to involve another person, yeah, we should ping this other person.
Yeah. Maybe what you can do first is just get an empty file in place, like literally just have a license file that's just empty, or that says, you know, the license will be put here before the project launches or something like that. And then that way you can get all the linking mechanics and make sure that it renders the way that you want it to render and everything like that. And then I can take the action to follow up and get the appropriate licensing text in place.
Should we start with copy and pasting the GraphQL spec license, or is there something there that's particular to that project?
There shouldn't be anything that is particular. I think there's some stuff that might be linked in a way that breaks in non-obvious ways. But broadly, that was going to be my plan, was like start by copying and pasting and then editing it down to make sure that it was very clear that it applied to these scalar specs. I think like in particular, like there's a copyright notice section for the spec that just would not be quite the right thing.
Yeah.
For the scalar submissions. So, but I think like if you wanted to do a pull request where you just start with that with the comment at the top that says, this is a copy, please come in and make changes. I will do that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, okay, that sounds also great. Like I said, these are the two things we're kind of blocked on, or we need a little bit help. In general, just to reiterate, we like the plan is that we will review new pull requests manually that comes in until it doesn't scale anymore, but I doubt it will not scale because we are not expecting hundreds of thousands. And so, yeah, it really, the overall goal is to get this out and get this moving and have infrastructure in place that works. And then we can refine things and wordings as we go and get feedback and other people want to contribute. But having this infrastructure in place, including license and domain, really, that brings us to a very good point already.
Cool.
Yeah, happy to discuss any other details or questions if some things are up, but otherwise I think that's the main issues from us, unless Donna has something else.
No, that's it. I feel like we're pretty close now to being done.
Very nice. Awesome. Anything else we should talk about? Otherwise, I'm happy to use some of our overflow time to start taking action on these things right now.
That sounds awesome. No, not for me.
Cool. We'll call it a wrap. We'll have a good short meeting.
Yeah.
Nice work on the progress, Donna and Andy. I'm excited for this to launch. Yeah, it'll be very exciting.
One thing around this, maybe Lee, two things. I think it would be great if we write a short blog post or something once we launch it to advertise it a little bit. And also if we can leverage, like, again, the Twitter account to tweet something out with a blog post link or so. That would be my rough idea to promote this a little bit more. In general, I think our blog post is a little bit underutilized and we could do more to reflect the work we're doing and the progress we're doing. For example, Express GraphQL deprecated should be probably announced clearly, or we could announce it clearly, or like the new spec compliant or future spec compliant project included again in the into the foundation. Stuff like this is probably worth blogging about, just as a general idea.
I totally agree. To be frank, I just haven't had the time to write those things. But certainly, Andy, if you would like to see this appear on the blog, write it, send it as a pull request, and we'll get it merged, and you'll
What's
have
the
a blog
repo?
post.
What's the repo for the blog?
I can go dig it up. It is one of those domain or repo names where GitHub forces you to name it in a weird way to make the default website work.
Oh, right.
Also, to be clearly, I didn't want to put this on your plate explicitly. Like I was not.
Yeah,
I didn't know that it's just a pull request. I had a more complicated process in mind. But if it's a pull request, we definitely can. I will try to utilize it more and bring up some pull requests.
Yeah. I know you didn't intend that. But just wanted to make sure it was clear.
Okay, I see what you mean by funny name.
Yeah. And no one's ever able to find it because, of course, it's called something weird because that's how GitHub pages work. And I'm also realizing that we've refactored all of this to use Gatsby, which is very cool. But I'm not a Gatsby user, so I want to make sure I know where all this is. Okay, I found it. There you go.
Is this actually?
Oh yeah, Benji beat me to it. That's the right link.
Is this deployed and everything like GitHub Actions like the rest, or do we have another process there?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
It should get automatically deployed as things get merged.
Okay, very nice.
Okay, then I mean, for a person writing a blog, it's just a markdown.
Exactly. Yeah, you send a pull request to add a markdown file, and there's nothing too fancy about them. There's some front matter. You write what you want to write, and then we merge it.
Okay, that's great. I either never knew or forgot about it. So thanks a lot for pointing this out. Yeah, but that's from my side.
It's a good reminder, though. I think we don't spend enough time thinking about sharing the results of the work that we're doing. And I might bring a reminder to the whole group that, like, especially as we make significant decisions, we ought to make note of them here.
Well, we are more like coming from the maker section of the world in general, right? Like so, and not from the communication and advertising part.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Cool. All right, folks. Very productive meeting. Talk to y'all soon.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Lee,
Oh,
one
great work
question.
on scalars.
Thanks, Benji. Lee, one question, like you can